Hello and welcome to Unicast Administrators. This is a channel dedicated to new IT enthusiasts looking to start learning and developing new skills in the Linux world. We will focus on getting you started with Linux. The topics will range from basic tasks like managing user accounts, services and installations, to even higher and more challenging topics such as security, firewall, storage solutions and managing containers. Today we are discussing what exactly is Linux and why is it such a high topic and why it might be useful for you to start learning it. So stay tuned. Let's discuss about what Linux is and where Linux is being used. Well, Linux is a free and open source operating system that powers a huge variety of devices, from smartphones to supercomputers to banking systems to even the cloud itself. It's everywhere. Linux it's a free and open source project. Unlike Windows or macOS, Linux doesn't cost you anything because its source code is available for anyone to see, modify and distribute. This open development has led to a large and active community constantly improving the operating system. And as we can see on this one, currently there are hundreds and hundreds of distributions, but the main ones that are most known are the Debian distributions, out of which Linux Mint is part, Debian itself, Ubuntu also it's a Debian distribution, and the other ones that are commonly known are the ones derived from the Fedora project, which are CentOS, Red Hat, Fedora itself, or even Rocky Linux. So let's discuss about Linux itself. Why is it such a hot topic? Well, as we can see on this diagram, Linux it's used on almost everything, starting with Android devices. Android devices are actually, all of them are built in Linux using the Linux kernel. Ever since the first Android device was compiled and built, it contained a Linux kernel. Linux it's used in everything that you can think of, starting with the banking system or the finance. Most of the company's infrastructure it's built in Linux. Same goes for governmental institutions. The most important services that the governmental institutions have are all based on Linux. Same goes for the development of antiviruses and security solutions. Another important thing to discuss about the Linux community is that, aside from the fact that Linux itself it's open source, the community influences this the most, because the community makes sure that everything that was already created in Linux it's updated and it's supported continuously, and also new projects are created almost every time, and this is also part of the Linux continuous innovation. Usually the open source community creates projects such as particular applications that are used in security or customizations. And here we are referring to the GNU or GNOME graphical user interfaces. Usually these are maintained by the specific teams inside the open source community. Aside from that, Linux is also used in the cloud. You can think of any cloud from Azure, Google Cloud Platform, OCI, or even AWS. All of them have some sort of Unix or Linux maintenance and servers that are actually used to allow beautiful and seamless and uninterrupted workflow for their cloud solutions and the services that they provide with their cloud technologies. Depending on the sources that you are citing, you will notice that different statistics websites will tell you that Unix or Linux it's used 70% worldwide, or 80% or 90%. Regardless of the source that you are reading, it's definitely clear that Linux is used on a higher rate than Windows is used. And this is mainly happening because Unix it's a modular system, and basically that means that A modular system is built from different software components that work together. The core of Linux is the Linux kernel, which manages the hardware and the resources of the computer. And on top of that, you can add other softwares such as desktop environments, like the GNU or GNOME projects, which are graphical user interfaces that you interact with. Another reason would be security, because Linux is generally considered a very secure operating system due to its design and own source development model. And an additional key point why Linux is so chosen, aside from the fact that it's very customizable and because it's very secured, it's also that it's cost effective. And this is happening because Linux, first of all, it's free and it's open source. That means that there are no licensing fees associated with Linux. You can run Linux, like distributions in Linux like Ubuntu or CentOS or Fedora, for free, and you don't have to pay any money for that. The only exception in this regard would be a few distributions that are actually corporate driven, and you need to pay license in order to use those. One example would be Red Hat. Aside from that, you can use so many distributions, and basically you are not going to be charged any dollar as long as you are using any distribution that is free. So as I stated earlier, it really depends on which statistic website you are reading. For example, I'm currently looking at W3Tech's statistics regarding the Linux usage for websites, and we can see that there is an 84.6% usage for Unix operating systems specifically designed for the websites, and only 41.9% usage for the Linux operating systems. What you need to know here is that Linux is created from Unix. Unix was the first one that was created back in the days, I think in around 80s or 90s, and then Linus Torvalds took Unix, made it more modern, made it better, and gave it the name of Linux. So regardless of which statistics you are reading, it's important to know that Linux, it's used most of the times when it comes to websites, infrastructure, specific application development, and many more, especially the cloud utilization. So this might be just a few reasons why it's good for you to start learning Linux, why you would want to use it, and why it's important to future-proof your future. Let's have a quick look at how we can start already existing virtual servers created inside VirtualBox, how the graphical user interface looks inside one server that has Linux, how we can boot it, and also how we can manage Linux from the terminal itself. So currently we are logging on a Rocky Linux, which has a graphical user interface installed, and we are opening the terminal so we can run a few random commands, and we are gonna illustrate how we can also change the resolution from the Linux graphical user interface, which currently has a GNU interface installed for the graphical user interface. And as you can see, we can use anything like we would use it on Windows. We can start the browser, browse through the file explorer, we can search for files, we can look at the general space that we have on our system, we can go back on our home directory, and many more commands and many more things, similarly as you run them on Windows. So let's have a look at how we work with the shell. So I'm gonna type in the command uptime -p, which shows us the uptime. We are gonna check which distribution version we are running. So we are running a Rocky Linux 9.3. We are also checking what is the name of this server and the date. And we are also going to have a look at how we can update and maintain the security of the server by running a command like dnf update. And here we are going to have to type Y for yes, so we can tell the terminal shell that yes, we want to apply the latest updates for Firefox and for mod_http2, which is a module package, an additional package used by the Apache server. So we can also make sure that we don't have any vulnerabilities there. So as you can see here, we are currently going through each and every single transaction check, which is done automatically by the Linux system, by the Linux kernel, whenever we try to update. And the actual update process was quite fast. So let's have a look at how we update Ubuntu, a Debian system. And here we have to do an apt update -y, and we are also going to do add symbol, and we are going to do a second command at the same time, which is upgrade, and also -y, so that the terminal will not ask us for approval. Basically, this search first searches for the updates and then applies the updates to the Ubuntu server, and that's how you update a Debian server. So as I stated earlier, it really depends on which statistic website you are reading. For example, I'm currently looking at W3Tech's statistics regarding the Linux usage for websites, and we can see that there is an 84.6% usage for Unix operating systems specifically designed for the websites, and only 41.9% usage for the Linux operating systems. What you need to know here is that Linux is created from Unix. Unix was the first one that was created back in the days, I think in around 80s or 90s, and then Linus Torvalds took Unix, made it more modern, made it better, and gave it the name of Linux. So regardless of which statistics you are reading, it's important to know that Linux, it's used most of the times when it comes to websites, infrastructure, specific application development, and many more, especially the cloud utilization. So this might be just a few reasons why it's good for you to start learning Linux, why you would want to use it, and why it's important to future-proof your future. Since we also had a look at the Linux terminal and the way it looks and the way we run commands, I thought, what better way is out there to end the video clip other than showing you how the Linux scripting actually is done. So here I'm writing a simple bash scripting that outputs a message to the terminal, to the window that you see in your working environment. Think of this as writing a simple hello world in any programming language that you can think of. So here I'm doing just that. While you watch this, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch my video clip. I hope I see you next time. Stay tuned, and please consider hitting that subscribe and liking button. See you next time. Cheers.